Okay, so in this video I'm going to be talking about my top 20 favourite films from 1980. This is all in accordance with the release dates on IMDb, and there's no real right or wrong to this list. These are just my top personal favourite 20 films from this year, just solely based on my opinion. So that being said, I'm going to give a shout out to three honourable mentions from this year that didn't quite make the list for me. So first up is Dario Argento's follow-up to Suspiria, and that is Inferno. Great sort of creepy witches covenant movie about a brother and sister who, well, the sister lives in the same building as this witch. Great creepy movie. Second honourable mention is Coal Miner's Daughter, starring Sissy Spacek and Tommy Lee Jones. Sissy Spacek actually won Best Actress for this film, playing Loretta Lynn. Yeah, just a really underrated biopic about the country singer. And my last honourable mention is Atlantic City, with Burt Lancaster and Susan Sarandon. Great sort of gambling drug film, really underrated, and it's got some quite gruesome death scenes in it as well. So yeah, they're my honourable mentions. So I'm going to get straight into the list now, and at number 20 for me is John Travolta in Urban Cowboy. Great sort of, well, as the title suggests, it's a great cowboy film. Sort of really about this couple that get married, and the husband, played by John Travolta, sort of believes heavily in gender roles, and the husband should do this and the wife should do this. And through the day they have their day jobs, and then by night they go to this bar where John Travolta's character loves to go on this mechanical bull, and he absolutely forbids his wife from doing it, but of course she defies him, and it sort of creates this wedge between them. Yeah, really underrated film that I really enjoyed. It's coming in at number 19 for me is Brian De Palma's Dressed to Kill. Yeah, really good underrated Brian De Palma film. This really underrated thriller as well. Still holds up to this day. Pays a lot of homage to Psycho, I think, this film. So if you've seen Psycho, there's a lot of that in this film. Really good performance as well by Michael Caine. So yeah, that's my 19th pick. Coming in at number 18 for me is Flash Gordon. A movie that was on TV a hell of a lot when I was a kid, but I never actually saw the film in full until just a few years ago. Really good sort of space opera about this, involving this sort of star quarterback that gets sucked into it. And you've got some great performances by some entertaining actors like Max von Sydow, Timothy Dalton, Brian Blessed. Great sort of just a real fun sci-fi movie. Yeah, there's not really a lot to be said about it. It's Flash Gordon. You either love it or you hate it, but I actually really enjoyed it. Yeah, great film for the genre of sci-fi, in my opinion. It's coming in at number 17 is Friday the 13th. Yeah, just a great sort of slasher film, an early one from the 80s, sort of following on from what Halloween did. yeah, so it sort of follows these kids that go to this Camp Crystal Lake, and are all getting dropping like flies, being murdered one by one. I won't spoil the ending, but it's someone who's got a vendetta towards camp counsellors because of their neglect, which is sort of a heavy topic in the film. But yeah, this is one I grew up with, and it's got some great effects by Tom Savini, who did the makeup effects in Dawn of the Dead. It's coming in at number 16 for me is The Long Riders. Great Western film about this gang who consists of sort of like two groups of brothers. They get involved in a bank robbery that pretty much goes horribly wrong. Yeah, some people survive, some people don't. Really good Western if you've not seen it. Really, really underrated in my opinion. It's coming in at number 15 for me. It's quite a controversial film, and that is Cruising with Al Pacino. Yeah, what to say about this film? It's sort of set in the late 70s. It's about a police officer who goes undercover as basically a gay man to check out the gay leather scene of the late 70s, as because there's a serial killer who's specifically targeting gay men. Yeah, I believe this film got a lot of backlash when it came out because of its portrayal of gay men in the 70s, and I believe it was just found to be a bit inaccurate. But I believe as time's gone on, I think people have warmed to it a lot more. Definitely worth checking out if you've not seen it. Very, very dark film. That affected me quite a bit, but it's yeah, definitely worth checking out if you've not seen it. So next on the list for me, coming in at number 14, is a film that's a bit more light-hearted, and that is Used Cars, starring Kurt Russell. This sort of black comedy film, directed and written by Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale, who are the minds behind Back to the Future. The plot's very simple. It's pretty much about these two used car salesmen who have businesses pretty much on opposite sides of the roads from each other, and are constantly in competition with each other, and that's pretty much the film. But it's done in such a humorous and enjoyable way, and Kurt Russell's fantastic. He normally is in everything he's in. Yeah, just a really fun, underrated movie. So next on the list for me, coming in at number 13, is Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor in Stir Crazy. This is a movie I grew up watching a lot as a kid. For me, watching it now, the final third of the film, I think, is the weakest part of the film. I just think the film falls apart for me at the end. But the beginning and the middle are so strong and really engaging, and the chemistry between Wilder and Pryor is like lightning in a bottle. It's so good. The two of them just bounce off each other so well, and the comedic timing's fantastic. So it pretty much follows these two guys who are framed for a robbery that they didn't commit, and that's sort of the first act of the film, and the middle act is them in prison. And the comedy is just so good and so great. The third act for me is where it sort of falls apart, where it sort of turns into this rodeo movie. It doesn't really do much for me, but as I said, the start and the middle are strong enough elements to it that won me over. But yeah, no, it's worth checking out. Next for me, coming in at number 12, is John Carpenter's The Fog. Yeah, really creepy movie, this one. It's sort of set in California, where this fog rolls in, and it sort of brings with it the dead spirits of these sort of sailors that were sort of killed over 100 years ago. It's really, really creepy. Really, really strong ending as well to this one. Standout scene for me that probably creeped me out the most is there's a scene in a hospital where someone's on a phone, and in the background there's this dead body on a bed, and it slowly comes back to life, and I just remember that sending shivers down my spine. Yeah, really good film to watch, probably late at night with the lights off. Yeah, John Carpenter's one of my favourite directors to make horror films. Yeah, just really good, this one. So, coming up next for me, at the number 11 spot, is Bob Hoskins and Helen Mirren in the Long Good Friday. Really good sort of British gangster film, which you don't see too many of. So it sort of centres around Bob Hoskins, who's this sort of London gangster who wants to become this businessman and do a deal with the American mafia to sort of get the docks up and running again. And the IRA's thrown in there as well. Some really, really good violent scenes. One particular towards the end with Hoskins when he absolutely loses his shit. Yeah, just really, really good, well acted film. Got an appearance from a young Pierce Brosnan in it as well, who I believe doesn't have any lines in the film. But yeah, just some of the acting in it is intimidating as fuck as well. Like, just absolutely shit the bed stuff. And violent as well. Yeah, definitely worth seeing if you've not seen it. So coming in at the number 10 spot for me is a film I sort of grew up on. It's a sequel, and it's a sequel that I watched more than the original, as much as I love that, and that is Superman 2, directed by Richard Lester. There's also an alternative version, which is the Donner cut, which I saw for the first time quite recently. So a little bit of a sort of a brief history about this film is that it was made back to back with the first one, which was, I think, one of the first times that had ever been done, where an original film had been made followed straight by the second one. Sort of production didn't really stop. And the first one was directed by Richard Donner, and by the time the second one had started filming, I believe the studio wasn't happy with Richard Donner and they fired him, and they brought in Richard Lester to sort of complete the rest of the film, which is the original version we got. And then there was like a sort of outcry from fans to get Richard Donner's version made and available to watch. I personally think the Donner version is the more superior film. It's the more competent film, but I've got a soft spot for the Lester version because that's the version I grew up with watching. So pretty much the general gist to Superman 2 is the first film he's defeated Lex Luthor and he's sent to jail. We find out in the first film as well that Jor-El sentenced 3 criminals from Krypton to the Phantom Zone, and at the start of Superman 2, they're freed and come to Earth and are sort of wreaking havoc on Earth. And Superman's at the Fortress of Solitude with Lois Lane, and he decides to give up his powers so he can be with Lois Lane. But then he finds out the villains of Krypton have arrived at Earth, and then eventually gets his powers back and defeats them. So that's the Lester version, but the Donner version is that, but it's a lot. It involves Jor-El a lot more, and Superman losing his powers and gaining his powers back. That's different in the Donner version. It's great to see more clips of Marlon Brando in it as well. Yeah, it's really hard because I love both films, but the Lester version was the one I grew up with and I've seen the most, and I've only seen the Donner version once. But I love them both the same. It's really strange. But yeah, no, if you've seen the first Superman, definitely check out Superman 2. The Donner version's a little bit harder to get hold of, but the Lester version, it's still fine. Still enjoy it, still worth watching. So yeah. So speaking of Superman and Christopher Reeve, my next pick at number 9 also stars Christopher Reeve, and that is Somewhere in Time. When this film came out, it sort of went under the radar. I believe there was a sort of actors' strike in the early 80s, so actors really couldn't sort of promote the films they were releasing. So Somewhere in Time sort of focuses on Christopher Reeve's character, who's a playwright, and he's celebrating the success of his new play, and he's at this party with the other actors, and this old woman comes up to him and puts a pocket watch in his hand, and she says something like, "Don't forget me," or "Come back for me," and then she's just gone, disappears. And then we jump 8 years later, and he's a successful playwright in Chicago, and he's trying to write his new play, and gets writer's block, ends up going to this hotel to get away from it and sort of relax and sort of turn his mind off. And he sees a picture of a woman, and he asks the people at the hotel a bit more information about her, and they give him this. He sort of comes across this book, and sees a picture of the woman, older, and it's the woman who gave him the watch. And he sort of then becomes obsessed with this woman and obsessed with time travel. And eventually he does find a method to get his mind back in time to meet her, and she sort of at first doesn't know him. She has a manager as well, played by Christopher Plummer, who's an absolute spanner in the works in this film. Just does not want Christopher Reeve's character spend any time with her at all. And I won't spoil the end, but if you've seen James Cameron's Titanic, the end of that film borrows so heavily from this, and it is quite weepy and quite a tearjerker of a film. But it's one that sticks with you. It's powerful enough to stick with you. I really enjoyed it massively. I hope to watch it again a couple more times in the future, but yeah, really enjoyed this one. So coming up next for me, the number 8 spot is a bit more of a light-hearted film, and that is Caddyshack. Great sort of golf comedy, this, with Rodney Dangerfield, Chevy Chase and Bill Murray. Yeah, it's a great sort of wager sports movie, with some great comedy in there as well. Great Great comedic performances from Bill Murray and Chevy Chase and Rodney Dangerfield. Bill Murray's character is this guy who's like trying to constantly kill this gopher. That's annoying him. Great use of music as well from Journey by Rodney Dangerfield, which was sort of parodied, and I always remember that being parodied in the Simpsons episode with Mr. Burns' son. But yeah, definitely one worth checking out if you've not seen it. So coming up next for me is the Best Picture winner from 1980, directed by Robert Redford, and that is Ordinary People. Great sort of family drama film. This involving a family that have two sons, and one is accidentally killed and the other is someone who's very suicidal. Deals with some real heavy topics, and well deserved of the Oscar. Great performances as well by Donald Sutherland. If you've not seen it and you just sort of want to say, oh, I've seen most of the Best Pictures winners, this is one. Definitely a great one. Yeah, I love drama films. It's probably one of my favourite genres. Probably just under horror and comedy. But yeah, definitely worth checking out if you've not seen it. So sort of as we enter the more sort of serious end of the spectrum of films that came out, coming in at number 6 for me is the film that won Best Actor this year, and that is Martin Scorsese's Raging Bull with Robert De Niro. Great biopic film following the middleweight boxer Jake LaMotta and his pretty much his antics and his mannerisms. Great character piece, this film. Great boxing scenes in it as well. I think it was clever to have filmed this film in black and white as well. Looks fantastic on Blu-ray. So yeah, it's pretty much the biopic of Jake LaMotta and how he sort of his mannerisms and how he sort of loses control and sort of the falling apart of his family as well. Yeah, if you've not seen it, check it out. It's a must watch. So coming in at number 5 for me is David Lynch's The Elephant Man. Really heartbreaking film, this. It sort of follows John Merrick, played by John Hurt, who was this deformed man. And he sort of gets taken into this hospital under the care of Anthony Hopkins' character. And he used to sort of be a circus attraction because of the way he looked. He had these like huge deformities and large limbs and an enlarged face, and hence the name The Elephant Man. But he was actually very clever and very kind person. But it was really sad to see in the film just the abuse he gets. There's a scene where they try and get him drunk, and it's really unsettling to watch. And there's a scene where his the sort of ringmaster at the circus sort of kidnaps him back and beats him up, and it's real disturbing stuff. And the end I won't spoil, but it tugs at the heartstrings. It's really, really sad. But yeah, fantastic film. It's probably the most coherent and straightforward of David Lynch's films. His films tend to be a little bit more abstract and nightmarish, but this one feels like a more cohesive story. very much beginning, middle, and end structure. But yeah, definitely worth checking out. So coming up next for me at the number 4 spot is probably one of my favourite comedies ever made, and that is Airplane. I've got it in this Blu-ray VHS special edition. Yeah, what to say about Airplane? Just absolute hysterical, satirical comedy. Some great performances as well. Such memorable lines. The Leslie Nielsen one of "Surely you can't be serious" is just fantastic. The drinking problem scene is great. So it pretty much focuses on standard airplane flight, but everyone's who's had the fish dish on the airplane has been poisoned, and the pilot's had the dish and he's been poisoned as well. And our main lead has to fly the plane and land the plane safely, but it's all the hysterical stuff that goes on with all the other passengers that makes the film. Yeah, if you've not seen it, do yourself a favour, put it on. It'll cheer you up. It's if you're having like a bad day or something like that, it's yeah, it's guaranteed to make you laugh. So coming up next for me at the number 3 spot is John Landis's The Blues Brothers. I've got it in the same sort of special edition packaging. Yeah, with John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd as Jake and Elwood Blues. So pretty much the premise of the film is the Blues Brothers. The orphanage that they were at is about to be closed, and their journey, which they call the mission from God they've been sent on, is to get their band back together and raise the money to save the orphanage. So yeah, they pretty much get the whole movie is just them going on this journey, meeting up with all their bandmates. There's so bloody many of them. It's like, how big's the band? You think they've got them all, and it's like, no, we've got to get there's someone else we've got to bring back. Great cameos in this film as well. You've got John Candy, Carrie Fisher, James Brown, Ray Charles, Aretha Franklin. Great music in it as well. And towards the end of the film as well, it's got one of the most impressive car chases I've ever seen. Like, the pile-up in that film is just fucking crazy. Yeah, just absolutely 10 out of 10 entertainment from this one. Yeah, I never get bored of watching it. It is a fantastic film. So coming in at the number 2 spot for me is Stanley Kubrick's horror masterpiece, The Shining. If you've seen a few more of my videos, you've probably seen this box set pop up a few times. Yeah, so it's based on Stephen King's book, who I believe was not a fan of the film. I believe he described it as the film as a shiny new car without an engine. Make of that what you will. To me, I think it's, as someone who's both seen the film and read the book, this film is still a masterpiece to me. It does differ from the book. There was a 2-part TV special that was made, which is a lot closer to the book in what it follows. But I still think this film is just, the techniques Kubrick uses are just phenomenal. It follows pretty much Jack Torrance, played by Jack Nicholson, who's been given the duties of caretaker for the Overlook Hotel during the time period where business is slow, so they it's not sort of economically viable to keep it open, so they close it during the winter. and his job is to basically live at the hotel during that period and make sure everything's okay with it. So he goes up there with his family, but strange things start to happen at the hotel. There was a bit of history there as well with like the previous caretaker who ended up going insane and murdering his family. But yeah, no, it deals with such creepy imagery as well. If you've seen it, the scenes with the twin girls is just absolutely terrifying. Excuse me. And Jack Nicholson's performance himself is just a phenomenal descent into madness. One of my favourite scenes is just where he's at the bar and you think he's talking to himself, and the bartender shows up. Just a great scene with the two actors just playing off each other. The ending as well to this film is so unsettling and so obscure and almost inconclusive. It's like the ending is make of it what you will. I have my own take on what the ending means, and I've seen there was a documentary made about the film which is just delves into all the conspiracy theories about it. There's even a conspiracy that this was Stanley Kubrick's message to the world on how he directed and forged the moon landing. It's absolutely insane, the theories behind it, but it is one of Kubrick's best, in my opinion. Kubrick sort of made a masterpiece in almost every genre. Comedy, sci-fi, period, war, horror. Yeah, he just made a sort of template for each one, in my opinion, and The Shining's his horror one. If you've not seen it, yeah, turn off the lights and just watch it at night. It is it's horrifying. So that leaves us at the number one spot for me, and it's a film that is the second part of a trilogy, and it's probably my least favourite one as a child growing up, but now as an adult it's one of my favourite films ever made, and that is Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back. Hands down the best sequel ever made. I don't think there's any arguing that. I saw Nostalgia Critic's review of this, and to argue the best sequel ever made, he had it down to Godfather 2 and Empire Strikes Back, and either one could be the best sequel ever made. But he made the point that Godfather Part 2 is the wine and Empire Strikes Back is the water. The wine can only really be enjoyed by adults, and the water can be enjoyed by everybody. I completely agree with that. That's probably why it's the better of the two films, just because it can be universally loved more. So to get into it, if you've seen the first part, A New Hope, you'll understand that that film ends with the rebels. They have a victory over the Empire. So to get into it, in the second film, the Empire is pretty much pissed and out for vengeance against the Rebel Alliance. Darth Vader is now obsessed with tracking down and locating Luke Skywalker, because he sort of has feelings about him, and they come true. What he his suspicions about Luke Skywalker. Luke grows as a character. He ends up meeting the Jedi Master Yoda, who takes him under his wing and trains him to be a Jedi. He was a fantastic character as well, voiced by Frank Oz. The movie ends with probably the greatest twist in cinema history. I won't spoil it in case anyone hasn't seen it. But by the end of the film, you're sort of left drained because the Empire, the bad guys, sort of win. They set out in what they wanted to do and they accomplish it. It is a bit of a gut punch. I remember seeing this for the first time in '97 when it came out on cinemas, the special edition, and I remember seeing that twist for the first time, and my mind was just like, "Whoa!" I need to see the next one immediately to get closure on this and have my suspicions confirmed. The character of Han Solo as well in this film, he's great, and he's left with a fate that's not concluded in this film as well. Yeah, it just sort of leaves you with the characters we follow beaten and broken. And it's like, where do we go from here? And sort of every film that sort of comes after that in a franchise is always referred to as the Empire Strikes Back of fill in the blank for that franchise. I regard Infinity War from the MCU as the Empire Strikes Back of the MCU. The way it ends, it's just where it just ends on a where do we go next? What do we do next? And it just leaves you wanting more. Yeah, just fantastically made film as well. Well written, well acted. The scenery and the special effects are just absolutely gorgeous. The film holds up without a doubt. And I'll never sort of be able to get my head around how early in the 80s this film came out. It came out the first year of the 80s and just set the bar for everything to follow. Yeah, just an absolutely fantastic film. You've probably already seen it. Watch it again. Yeah, it's great. So yeah, that's my top 20 favourite films from 1980. So yeah, thanks very much for watching, and I'm going to be back with my top 15 favourite films from 1981. Bit of a shorter list. But for the majority of the 80s, yeah, a lot of top 20 lists from this decade and beyond, really, into the 90s as well. But yeah, thanks very much for watching, and I'll be back soon with 1981. And yeah, take care.